love to have Gary's Economics on my podcast.
Yeah.
And I like with Narinda, I was completely perfectly polite to her. I didn't shout or anything like that. And I was just trying to have the argument out. I would totally do the same with Gary's Economics. But he didn't even reply. Like my video got as many views as his video, and yet, right?
Well, maybe I'll get back to you, but
I don't think he will.
We're seeing the
because
left.
he's a coward.
We're seeing the left now talking about the rich, and they're sort of pivoting slightly away from woke. Some of them, you could argue that woke has now evolved into violence in the US, but they're pivoting slightly away. I mean, I even saw Ash Sarkar the other day say that she had more in common with someone going to a Tommy Robinson protest than she had with, and she named a rich corporate person of her same sort of background, ethnic background. Yeah, and I was like, that's extraordinary. So they're pivoting slightly, and they do have some kind of argument, which is, you could say that free markets, it's deracinated communities and so on. And so has the right been too keen to let free market economics run rampant? There's low-skilled foreign workers, which is obviously a big problem. It's also arguably caused high cost of living, poor services like water and trains, the destruction of communities, which I mentioned. So is that an area where the left actually can be stronger? Although they miss a trick, in my opinion, because they can't talk about the problem of immigration culturally, many of them, most of them, but they also miss the trick of talking about it economically and saying, well, it's ruined wages. They don't even go there because they're so scared now. But is this an area that the left might become stronger on the economic argument, and the right has kind of been a bit too Thatcherite?
Yeah, I don't think we should be extreme economic liberals or any kind of liberal. And this reveals how the left is committed to the most pure form of liberalism as well. So their main complaint, or if they were smart, they would look at the history of quote-unquote human rights and the liberal state's interpolation of an individual person as a subject, a bearer of human rights, an isolated atomic person who is a bearer of human rights, and that's how the state deals with each individual person. And they would say, isn't that exactly what capitalism wants? Isn't that perfect for capitalism? And isn't it really weird how the capitalistic liberal system works hand in glove with this idea of that's what a person is? Because of course that means that not only are the relationships each person has fungible, as in they're not from a particular place, a particular community in a particular time, related to a particular people and who have a particular claim to a land, that all those relationships are fungible, but also the people themselves are exactly the same, so they're fungible too. They're all the bearers of identical universal human rights, which, yeah, that's great for an international business cartel or something like this. This is great for the economy, the GDP growth. We can just import 1 billion foreigners and it doesn't matter. They're all just the same. And the leftists should be like, maybe it's my conception. I share the same foundational premises of liberalism that the business owners do. And so am I just their useful idiot? Like, am I just agreeing that actually I can't be racist to them because that's bad from the liberal perspective? And so I can't draw a distinction between us and them because in my mind, we're all the same, which is the same as the capitalist businessman, which is causing all of the wealth inequality. Because like you say, what you're appealing to there as kind of particularities, right? Before Thatcher, frankly, you can complain about the economy all you want, but at least it was focused on the people in the country, right? At least the thing was meant to be for us. And okay, it means you've got less productive industries and whatever, you don't get as much economic growth, fair enough. But it wasn't about serving the economy. The economy was there to serve the people. And this is a real problem that people like Gary's Economics have, where they're like, yeah, so I can only ever talk about the consequences of the system. I can never talk about what's being plugged into the system to generate those consequences. And so, yes, I mean, you can import 1 billion Somalians who have got exactly the identical human rights I have, and that is a massive issue on the supply side of economics. When you're looking at the labour market, you turn it into very much a buyer's market rather than a seller's market. But because I'm an anti-racist, because I'm exactly the same like-minded of the billionaire internationalists who are importing all of this competition that's driving everyone's wages down and making them insanely wealthy and creating all of this inequality, I can never address it. I can never address that from the position of the working man who would actually like his labour to be worth more. He can never address any of these. And so what do they have to come out with ridiculous propositions like, right, we're just going to tax the rich. It's like, okay, what does that mean, Gary? That means that literally anyone who builds themselves up, who actually puts the time in to create a business, to get themselves from the bottom, like, because right, I'm personally a good example, right? I'm probably in like the top 10% of earners in the country, right? So I do fairly well. I'm not like a multimillionaire or anything, but you know, I do a lot better than anyone else in my family ever has. And you know, like 15 years ago, I was unemployed, right? So I had nothing. I was renting a flat in the middle of Swindon, and through hard work and I guess luck, I was able to build up a business and create a very nice life for myself, and you know, do very well for hopefully everyone around me, right? Everyone who I employ and stuff like that. I would then fall into the same category as Gary, be like, well, you need to be taxed. And it's like, but why? What have I done? You know, what have I done other than be successful? And so he's like, yeah, well, I just have to go along and slice off these top layers because otherwise I can't stop the inequality. So yeah, but you could if you weren't a liberal about how you perceive the world. If you didn't agree with the capitalist system on what a human being was, as in an atomic, universal, rights-bearing individual, and you thought they came from a particular place in a particular time, you would actually be able to come to a consensus on the right, actually. You'd actually be able to appeal. But you saw the video the other day where it's like, look, reform voters, all I'm saying is please don't be racist. Well, what does that mean? It means please don't feel like you belong somewhere. It means please don't feel like England is yours, Britain is yours. Please don't feel like you're a part of this thing and accept the billion Somalians. But that's exactly the same sort of thing that any international capitalist business owner would say. Like, yeah, no, please don't be a racist. Please don't feel that this belongs to you because we need to import cheap foreign labor in order to make sure that our profits are maximized. So he isn't on exactly the same plane as those people. And all he can do is just be like, oh, well, we're just going to have to tax the rich. It's just the state is just going to have to steal their money. It's like, I don't want the state to steal anyone's money, actually. As an Englishman, I hate the state. You know, I hate taxation. But the system is set up to create this kind of level of inequality, and he can never address that. I mean, you saw the Green Party the other day. We're going to vote to abolish landlords. It's like, it's just a Maoist policy. It's an openly Maoist policy because there's nowhere else to go from their position. So they're kind of, you know, you are right. I'm not like a, you know, hardcore capitalist. But what I want is for people to own property. And it's like, okay, well, another thing, Gary, why are the costs of housing so high? So, oh, the immigrants live somewhere, do they? So if you bring in 1 billion immigrants to make sure that wages are depressed so the businesses can make, you know, hugely unequal amounts of money, well, that means you're disenfranchising people from their own native land. Like, my kids can't afford to buy a house.
Right. Yeah, I think this is a big failure on that. Of course, there's been attempts to address this on the right. Steve Bannon's economic nationalism, which was the ethos behind MAGA, was about that. You know, whether that's worked. It's been diluted at times by Elon's tech bro side and what is an American if you're protecting American workers, and then you've got the immigration question. But it is interesting. The left's doing the same thing as the...
And they're always complaining. They're always like, oh, well, capitalism is predicated on infinite growth. So your immigration policy is predicated on infinite foreigners.
Right.
Like, you are no different to these people. And you're constantly being like, oh, what about wage growth? Okay, well, again, do you think that this is going to grow forever? Because if you don't think it's going to grow forever, you've got to admit that everything has a ceiling. You have to admit at some point we're not actually going to get even more rich than we already are, right? So, and if you don't admit that, then what you are saying is, yeah, no, I agree with the capitalists that actually the point of the economy is infinite growth.
Right.
And so, like, they're actually no different. They just don't understand why they're not different.
Yeah, and they've also lost this aspect that the old left did have, which was an instinctive, we need to protect our wages, and the SDP and people still have that, but all the sort of big left parties...
The blue Labour sort of paternalism.
Yeah, they still have that, but nowhere else.